Welcome back, hosers. It is late August in the garden, and that means it's time to start treating my tomato plants a little bit differently. So in this tomato patch, I have I've got 4 indeterminate plants and 2 semi-determinate plants. And I think the difference between the two is really striking right now, if you want a visual example of what that is. So determinate or semi-determinate plants are going to not grow as wild. So a determinate plant is going to have a set size that it grows to, and once it hits that size and produces all of its fruit, it's done. These are semi-determinate, and I've quite enjoyed it. It means they stayed small, but these produced earlier than anything else, and they're continuing to produce throughout the season. And I've done very little pruning. I've cut back a few of the branches that strayed out beyond where I wanted to deal with them. But beyond that, I've kind of just left them alone. They're compact and they're fruitful, and I love them. So these are Raspberry Liana from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. Not a sponsor, yet sponsor me. If you're interested in growing some, I recommend them. The flavor is great. They're an early producer and a regular producer. Now, this indeterminate tomato here closest to me, oh hello hummingbird. We have to pause and let this happen. Oh, I love hummingbirds. Okay, so that was attracted to the flowers in the pollinator garden just right there. So indeterminate tomatoes are a vine that just keeps going, and it will continue to grow and attempt to fruit until it's killed by frost. The problem is that these are big tomatoes. My record tomato at 2.6 pounds was this variety. This is Hungarian Heart from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, and it takes a long time, like 5 or 6 weeks, to actually get a tomato to ripen on this plant. To go from flower to ready to harvest fruit takes a while. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that any future flowers, any current flowers even, are just not going to do me any good, and it's time to top this plant. So right here I do see a tomato cluster in progress, so I'm going to cut off right above it. So that little guy right on top gets to stay, but that's a little bit pointless as well. Take that off. This is really healthy growth, so I can put it right in my compost pile without worrying about holding on to any pathogens. I'm going to throw it on the ground for now. I'm going to go around and cut off all of the flowers on this vine now, because it's just too late for more flowers. So all of the suckers are coming off. All of the flowers are coming off. There will be no new development allowed. This will hopefully encourage it to focus all of its energy on maturing the fruits that it already has in progress. And I can tell you from experience that it's going to take regular intervention on my part to keep it under control, because it's going to try to make up for the fact that I'm chopping stuff off. Now the Raspberry Liana actually develops its fruit fairly quickly, so I still have almost 2 months to my average first frost, and so I'm going to leave this alone and continue enjoying the fruits that I get from it. So if I eat a bunch of fried green tomatoes, they're probably going to be these ones. Now over here, cherry tomatoes are a very similar story, because cherry tomatoes develop quickly. So I'm not going to top these plants. I'm going to let them continue to develop upward up my poles, and continue to let them set new flowers and fruit. And over here is an old German tomato plant that I got at the gardener's market, and it's getting topped as well, because these take forever. And it's another indeterminate plant, but as you can see, it's not being as successful as the Hungarian Heart. I think that's mostly because I started a little bit late. Hopefully taking these steps is going to help me maximize my ripe tomatoes for the season. In case you're wondering, this is lettuce. This is black-seeded Simpson lettuce, one of my favorite varieties for green leaf lettuce, and I'm letting it go to seed because free seeds. It's really easy. So everything in this pat is black-seeded Simpson. If you're still with me, I do want to just kind of share an announcement. I started a new job, which means that my schedule is going to go from trying to publish a long-form video every Monday and every Friday to just every Friday. So I'm going to commit to continuing to do one every Friday, but you're only going to get one long video a week, and then I'm going to do as many shorts as I can. At least 3 is my goal. Let's just show you around the garden so that we can talk about what else is going on. So let's sweep on over here. Ooh. And let's go over to that bed over there where we've got some kohlrabi and some peppers. First of all, I'm really proud of this basil because you see it doesn't have a bunch of flowers on it, and it does have a lot of really nice leaves, which I'm going to take advantage of very soon. The reason this is still useful basil this late in the season, because it went out in the spring, is because I've been pruning regularly. And I'm not always ready to use the basil, but it doesn't matter. You just want to pick it regularly. Now that basil plant over there has not been picked regularly. See the difference. If you want more basil, pick your basil more. It's weird. I'm still getting used to this concept because it's counterintuitive. But this basil that I've been picking on regularly is great. The trick, as much as you can say there's a trick to picking basil, is encouraging branching growth. So right here, I've got a couple of branches coming off, a couple of side shoots. If I snip off right here, I'm going to encourage those to grow. Here's some basil for me to enjoy. And then right here, I pull off here and, nope, that one's already good. So I just go in, and everywhere I see growth after a fork, I'm going to pull that off and encourage further forking. And this bushy forking growth is just going to make my basil more and more productive over time until, of course, the frost kills it. At which point, I might try to start some inside and continue to enjoy it through the winter in a sunny window, because I have to say, I've gotten rather spoiled when it comes to basil. Just a moment's work, and I don't know, is this like $4 worth of fresh grocery store basil? All right, the other plants I have going on right here are, got some peppers in front of and behind the basil plant. So these are jalapenos, and honestly, they should be much bigger than they are, but grasshoppers have been putting significant pressure on my garden this year. And so I may or may not get peppers before the frost. At least I have flowers and some fruit starting up now. Another thing in this bed it's worth looking at is, of course, my favorite. We've got some kohlrabi going on in here. And this guy, put my hand in here for scale since I don't have a banana, is about big enough to be picked. You want to pick these during the warmer seasons. You want to get them to about the size of a golf ball and then pick them. Once it cools down, I can let my kohlrabi start to get bigger, and I'll still have that delicious, sweet, soft flesh. But for now, because I'm still having hot days, that's got to get about the size of a golf ball and no larger. Now, despite some severe depredation on the part of grasshoppers, I'm pretty happy with how my late potato bed is looking. These are Yukon Gold potatoes. They're flowering, and if I can, looks like the flowers are all getting eaten by grasshoppers. If I can have a flower mature and form berries, I intend to grow some potatoes from seed next year. Not because I'm foolish enough to think it'll get me more Yukon Gold potatoes, but because I'm curious about what I'll get. So look forward to that next year. But it's doubtful because apparently grasshoppers are really fond of the soft, tender tissue of flowers. In this bed, this is where in a previous video I sowed the Komatsuna, Mibuna, and Tatsoi. They've all come up now. It's been under a week. I'm super happy about that. I'm looking forward to some greens that thrive well past a first frost, which is really the point of late season greens. So my salad days are just beginning. I'm also very happy to say that I've finally finished building a couple of more beds in my garden. And so I've got a place to put the seedlings that I've started indoors as they mature, but we're not there yet. So that's all the big news from my garden right now. Look forward to another video next Friday and every Friday after that. This is our last Monday video on my channel. Thank you for joining me in my garden. Make sure that you like and subscribe this video because I'm working on the whole growth thing right now. Also, I'd love to hear, how are things going in your garden? Are there any challenges that you've been dealing with this year that are maybe unique? I know it's been a really rough year for me regarding grasshoppers, and then also just bad timing. I didn't have any garden beds made at the beginning of the season. It's rough to garden when you've got nowhere to do it. Do you have any questions about what I've talked about? Throw those in the comments as well. And I hope you have a wonderful time in your own garden.